Chiefs rookie camp kicks off. Guys are making names for themselves, and some have made some transactions as well. We catch you up today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, folks. We're brought to you today by Monopoly Go. It's the easiest way to get in and play that game that reminds you of the old classic. It has a twist. You can join your friends or play solo. Download Monopoly Go right now. It's free on the App Store and on Google Play. They probably wouldn't like that. We have a lot to go over because for a very short period of time, there's been a bunch of transactions. This is Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. I'm Ryan Tracy of Rogue Analytics, as well as NFL 33 and RGR Football. You can check us out on our individual Substacks at Chiefs Corner at those sites, and you can get even more on the text line at 816-357-8781. We're brought to you 5 days a week plus here on the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every single day on here, YouTube, where you can like, sub, and hit the bell, and you can get us on Spotify and Apple Music, podcast, whatever they call it these days, as well as every single audio platform out there for free all the time. We're going to have some fun today because we're going to have some clarification on how you do something in Chiefs Kingdom going forward. That's coming up later in the show. Who stood out of the draft picks coming up next, but the Chiefs got enough of a look to make some decisions early on after one practice, and they made some transactions on Saturday, cutting some names that are very familiar, including one that was a restricted rights free agent that had to go at this point because of what they've seen on the field. You want to run those down for us?
So Anthony Miller, who came over from Chicago, I believe is where he was last. He has been released. And then the following players have been waived from the Chiefs. Jacob Copeland, who is a wide receiver. Isaiah Gaithens was a tight end. Tyree Gillespie, a safety. Jordan Smith, defensive end. Shai Smith, a wide receiver. And the one you're referring to is Cole Christensen, who has been on the Chiefs roster for the past couple of years. He was an exclusive rights free agent, and they withdrew his tender.
That's the one that's really intriguing. He actually, I think, got enough reps to make a name for himself. The exclusive rights allows you to control the rights of the player. And for them to give that and rescind it, once they pull the tender because of the circumstance around it, and you'll clarify here in a minute, that means they've made an evaluation that even at the tender, which is generally low for an exclusive rights, that they've got enough guys on the roster that they feel are an improvement. And that points to two things, that as we've been talking about, Cam Jones and Jack Cochran are their primary backups at this point. And it also tells me that Jacobs might be making enough of a push to show them enough that he should have a shot at the practice squad at the very least.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it says to me, is that they like what they see in Jacobs. I don't think that they were looking at really adding a linebacker, and I don't think that they figured that they could get Jacobs because they probably were going to draft him. So to get him and to get him in Kansas City, I do think that he has a chance. And I'll say it right now, I think he has an outside chance at making the roster, not just the practice squad. We'll see how training camp goes, obviously, and preseason games, but it is something to take into account that they already released a guy that made contributions for him last year.
Yeah. And the workings around the tender, explain why that was able to go. It's part of the CBA and everything cap, folks. I have to defer to Chris because I will not keep it straight and give you the accurate information because the dollars and cents are not my favorite part of this. But it takes some rigmarole to give up a restricted rights free agent, and it has to be a certain condition for them to be able to pull the tender, right?
Yeah, they have to. So restricted rights free agents, and this isn't actually an RFA, this is an ER, so an exclusive rights free agent. So it's an ERFA or whatever. It's exclusive rights free agent, so it is an ERFA. My apologies. So Christensen only had, I believe, 1 year of experience, maybe two, but that qualifies him as an ERFA, and basically at that point, Kansas City gives him a deal. It is for the minimum of that player's time that he's been in the league. So whatever that ends up being, I think it's closer to $900,000 for year two. And at this point, he hadn't signed it. If he had signed it, I don't think that they could withdraw it. So he hadn't signed it yet because none of the on-the-field activity, well, they have workouts that are going on right now, but none of the OTAs, none of the on-the-field activities has started. So he's not required to be there for any of that. And at this point, they just said, okay, well, we feel good enough about where we are. we're going to rescind it, and he has an opportunity to go get a job somewhere else.
A couple things stand out about that. He is a 26-year-old third-year player or whatever it is. Only two, I think, count, and that's why he's eligible. But maybe that's probably the best case. Maybe that's why he wanted to not sign the tender and see if he could get to free agency and go elsewhere. Maybe the clock's ticking for him. I'm not sure. But I believe I'd have to go back and check the transaction dates, but I believe that tender was placed in March. So he's had plenty of time. So I do believe it was a conscious decision. And at that point, if that's what you're looking for, the Chiefs have enough volume there at that positional role, basically a practice squad linebacker, that they feel that they can replace that. So I don't think that's a huge loss for the roster. And maybe it's an advantage for him to go on with his career and get somewhere that does have a need that's more significant at his position.
Well, and you're right. I mean, this was something that was done in March. It was done right before free agency started. It was something that had to happen right before free agency started. So at this point, he is going to be elsewhere. He won't be in Kansas City. And now you're looking at a situation where there's another potential linebacker spot available. We'll see whether or not Cochran or Truman Jones is going to be somebody that can be beat out, or if this new guy is just going to be somebody that could be on the practice squad this year.
Yeah, we're going to find out. But there's also some guys making some noise here about how they're adapting after they've been drafted. The draft picks are coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is winner take all time, and you want to get in the action, whether it's NBA or NHL. FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a huge win of your own. Right now, new customers are getting $150 in bonus bets back to them for winning a $5 bet. That's $150 back to your account as bonus bets to be bet on spreads, money lines, player props, whatever you're looking for. There's a ton of action you can get on. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every single playoff shot count. At FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now, for us, it's nice because we're 24/7 on the Kansas City Chiefs beat. That's what we do. But if you want the bigger stories, the biggest stories from around the league and around the sports world, make sure you're on Locked On Sports Today. That feed is 24/7 here on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV. Make sure you get signed up, like, sub, and hit that bell over there, and you'll get everything you want whenever you're available 24/7 a day. 7 is a decent number. 1 is an even nicer one. He happens to be worn that number by Xavier Worthy now. Pour one out for Jerick McKinnon. If he comes back, I think 11's in his future. I'm not sure who holds that currently on the roster, but you got to look at 1 this weekend. And from the short clips that I was able to see, obviously only media were allowed at the practice facility. I was pretty happy to see quicker feet that he's able to drill than what he shows when he ends up striding in his routes. So just to make sure that kind of like foot quickness is there, that's one of the things that I've been hoping to see a little bit more of in the draft process, and I'm glad that we saw it here at rookie minicamp.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he showed up, I believe, at 172. I apologize, at camp. That was the weight that he weighed in at. So I do think that shows that he dropped weight to run and got done what he needed to get done. And they listed him at 6'1", whatever. I think that's probably a little taller than he probably is. But regardless, you're in a situation where he is probably about the weight you want him to play. He's probably going to have to gain a little bit more weight, but they are going to work with him with the nutritionist. Does sound like he did a very good job and was showing out both on Saturday and Sunday. I apologize. And it does sound like he was returning punts. So I think that's something that's going to be something that he will be doing in his future. And I know Chiefs Kingdom is upset because the first clip they saw of him running in a wide receiver drill, he dropped the ball. But,
not our favorite thing.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, you're going to see all the players drop balls, I would imagine, throughout camp and through OTA. So it's going to happen. But he has come back, and I like the foot drills that I saw. I like him breaking out for an out route, it looked like. I mean, his ability to go full speed and then break and cut on a dime is going to be a lot of fun in this offense.
Yeah, and he doesn't quite have the breaks that Tyreek Hill has,
right.
But it's better than you expect. When you look at his route tree from college, Out routes were not his thing at Texas. But I do believe the foot quickness that I've seen so far in just running drills is something I think they can build on so that he can continue to break down. He's also got to change his pad level a little bit more because he does run in a sprinter's style a little bit more upright. And so I think if he drops his hips a little bit more, he'll be able to combine that with his foot quickness and get out of cuts better. I'm excited to see it. The fact that he's starting on punt returns, that's not a huge surprise, right? Like we knew that was going to be a talent. Mixing in with him was Horton from North Texas, as well as Porter, Reggie Brown, and I think what everybody's excited to see, I actually am, is Luis Rees-Zammit getting out there. And by our own buddy Matt Derrick's eyes, who was at practice, looks all the part. And so we make the transition before we talk about another draft pick, because I just want to mention Zammit is not only looking like he's belongs on the field, but he's running routes out of the backfield as well. And I do think that's a nice little thing to remind everyone of, that he is still positionless. They're going to work him as a wide receiver. They're going to work him as an H. They're going to work him as a running back and see where it fits. So I'm excited about it. What he's not going to do is become a tight end. That is going to be Wiley's job here. And I think the departure of Gathings that we mentioned in the first segment tells you that Wiley, Gray, certainly up there. Pour one out also for Matt Bushman, who retired from the league or is intending to. That came out this weekend as well. It tells me a lot about Wiley. What stood out to you about him? And then I want to ask you a serious question about his background.
You know, I think what sticks out to me about him is just he knows what he wants. I mean, he's got in there. He knows that he's been following Travis Kelce. He's been looking at his game film for the past several years. He's been trying to model his game to an extent beyond or after Travis Kelce. And you look at what he was able to do out on the field on Saturday and Sunday. He was smooth out of his breaks. He caught the ball well. He was all over the field doing what he needs to be able to do, or doing what he needs to do. And it sounds like he knows where he's supposed to be on the field at the same time. All of that leads me to believe that this is a guy that is potentially going to be able to step in and have I'm not going to say a great influence on this season, but at least a pretty decent influence on this season. He should be able to step in and take some pressure off of Travis Kelce and take some pressure off of Noah Gray and give Patrick Mahomes another option to be able to throw to from that tight end position.
I completely agree. And I think he talked about it in his presser over the weekend, and I think it stands out to me as an advantage. I certainly can see it as one of the criteria for the evaluation pre-draft, but I do think it's going to help his transition. And that's the fact that he, much like Travis Kelce, was a high school quarterback and made the transition to tight end. He understands that he has to be available. What did we talk about last year with Rashee Rice? Is making yourself available to the quarterback. He understands that from both perspectives. And so I think that goes a long way. He's got enough athleticism, I think, to make a difference. And he understands where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be. He talked a lot about learning the playbook. And I think that's key for a rookie coming in to have those two things, to understand what the quarterback needs and what the playbook's supposed to say. This is going to be his sixth offense in 6 years. Some at Texas, ending at TCU, and now in Kansas City. So I like the prospects or the chances of this prospect working out, learning the offense, and becoming a contributor rather early, because he's had to go through this routine over and over and over.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that he really needs to focus on, obviously getting to know the playbook, knowing where he's supposed to be, running his routes the way he's supposed to, and the timing of all the routes. Don't get me wrong, that's a big part of it too. But you said something that's very important. He played quarterback. He sees the game from a different level than most of the players coming into the NFL. And yeah, it was in high school. It's been a long time since he played QB. Doesn't really matter. You still process and you still look at things differently when you have that background. Travis Kelce will tell you that. We've seen it on the field. I'm not expecting him to get to the point where Travis is and being able to find soft spots and zones and see everything that Mahomes sees. But if he can even take half of what Travis does in that regard, that opens up so much more on the offense. And the hope is that he can not only do that himself, but he can maybe show some of his fellow rookies how to do that going forward. Because how much of a huge deal would it be if Worthy got to a point where he could do half of what Travis did, finding ways to get open, finding zones to get open in? Worthy seems like he's smart enough and he understands the playbook enough already. But if he can learn that additional added step, it's going to be a bonus for the Chiefs team.
I think it absolutely will. And I hope that they can come together as a rookie group, much like the DBs did 2 years ago, and work together, train together, study together. I do like that concept because the lines between pass catching tight end that the Chiefs use and wide receivers is significantly blurred these days. It's not an inline Y blocker first type dude. So I think there's a chance for that. There's also a chance that one of the longer shots in Chiefs rookie minicamp are going to be able to make a difference. We're going to get to them. Give you a little lowdown coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
All right, game off. We got to pause here for a moment to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. We've already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. You need to go check it out. Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments. Whether you work together to build up each other's boards, the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. You can get unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
As you get your game on, make sure that you check out Locked On Sports Today. It's a 24/7 feed for all your information. We'll help you get your game on here on YouTube as well as on Amazon Fire TV. Check it out, Locked On Sports Today. Today, we're going over what we understand of other guys that stood out. And I have a couple. We talked about Luis Rees-Zammit and his speed being enough to get him into that level. His training at IMG Academy certainly gave him the basics. And I think for a guy that I haven't commented on this yet, and I'm interested to see your opinion too, for a guy to put away what is a standout career in rugby at his age to come play American football, I think tells you about not only his confidence in himself, but in what he believes is the best path forward. I expect him at this point, the more I hear about him, the more that I get feedback from what he's doing on the field in a couple of months, the more I feel like he's a guy that's going to push to be a practice squad guy that sticks around at least this season and maybe even do more. I don't know. I'm not going to put a limitation on him anymore.
You know, it's hard because you sit there and you look at what the Chiefs usually do at the running back room, and this is a situation where maybe he's the fourth running back on the roster, and it's because of all the different small things that he can do. Maybe he becomes one of the returners. Maybe you don't want to have Worthy back there and you want to have him be your kick returner or him be your punt returner. All those are different options. And the other reality is that maybe he's your backup kicker. If you don't want Justin Reed out there, he has the ability to do that too. The reality of the situation, though, is that Kansas State's probably going to keep 4 running backs. Whether or not it's going to be including a fullback, we'll see. But they're not going to probably keep 7 wide receivers this year. Yeah, I know. You're going to say they're going to. We'll see. I don't expect they're going to keep 7 receivers, so I do think that maybe they're going to keep 4 running backs, and he has an option of making it as one of the last running backs on this roster. It's going to be intriguing to see what he's able to get done. One of the other tidbits that I want to make sure that we get thrown out there is they have a old receiver that showed back up and is going to be around for the training camp area as a coach. Garrett Dieter is going to be an intern as a wide receiver coach.
You know, good for him. He put up a good fight to try to keep his career going. At some point, you just got to hang it up. But I like the concept. And what we heard back in the day of Garrett Dieter, he was a good locker room guy that had a solid attitude, and he was an effort player. If he is an effort coaching intern, he's going to turn that into something. This is the same position that other famous people have participated in and led to them coaching other places. Like Mike Vick was here for a bit. A number of different coaches that are now with different staffs, whether it's Philly, whether it's Jacksonville. Obviously, there's connections there. I believe someone has landed with the Ravens as well that were coaching interns here. It's the first step into a different career in the NFL, and good for him.
And it's also possible he could end up with a job with Kansas City. Kansas City has a wide receiver coach that doesn't have a ton of wide receiver experience. So maybe they want to go a little bit deeper into that.
That might be a very interesting way to get around. And he's been here for the entire evolution of Patrick Mahomes. So like there's a personal connection there that might help speed some chemistry development. And I like that concept. It's a really good point. Who else stood out to you in little tidbits?
Well, we've already talked about Wiley. We've already talked about Worthy. I'll let you talk about Kingsley Suamataia and what you want to talk about for him for just a moment.
Yeah, and the press corps did a good job on Sunday, and kudos to Matt Derrick for putting it out. They asked Kingsley how to pronounce his last name, and I have been fairly accurate. Not always. I have blown a few.
Oh, me too.
But folks, Kingsley Suamataia is the way that you pronounce his name. I'll lock that in now. I've been there for the way I've been leaning. But now that we've heard it out of his own mouth, we know that we're getting it right. So kudos to Matt Derrick and the press corps for getting that done. Yeah, and kudos for him. I mean, he is excited. He said right after he got drafted here from Patrick Mahomes, he was excited about that. He said that Mahomes is, reached out a couple of times. They've talked a little bit. It makes him want to go work out and get to his workout even earlier so he gets more workout in. He is working on his drop step. It sounds like from both angles, both right and left. And he got that coming from his cousin, Penei Sewell, told him to keep his feet going on both sides. So he's definitely, and Penei Sewell is one of the best tackles in the NFL. So definitely somebody you should be listening to. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to be able to watch him play, and he is definitely excited to be here. He took 76 because he liked Orlando Pace back in the day. That's why he took 76. 78 is not possible in Kansas City, so 76 it is. Well, that's kind of cool. And it's certainly nothing that you based a draft pick on, but having Penei there and his experience and his ability, this is going to go into his third season, or he just completed his third season? So he's got enough.
Got a big deal. So he's going into season number 4. 4.
Okay. So he's got enough seasoning that he's now got not just his college experience that he can advise him on, but now being in the league and playing in that division where you get some good pass rushers, and he's done enough. I think that that's a nice bonus for Kingsley to have that resource. I think Kingsley's more athletic than his cousin, to tell you the truth, in terms of the way that he moves. So if he can lock a couple of things down, I think that's really going to help him. And I think that that's a nice bonus that I don't know if the Chiefs really took that into account, or if that was really part of the evaluation, just kind of an asterisk at the end that may end up being the difference between a good tackle and a great tackle.
Yeah, and I will say this. Kingsley, I'm sure, is a competitive person. I'm sure his entire family is. So having a all-pro to compete against in your own family, that's going to give him just a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more desire. I think it's going to be fun to watch him grow and see what he's able to grow into over the next several seasons. I do think that he is going to possibly struggle year one. He does have some technique issues that he needs to get fixed. I do expect that Andy Heck is going to be working with him on that. And the bigger question when it comes to the technique issues is, what does he want to invest this season? Because he has an opportunity as soon as this camp is over. Maybe he goes and gets involved with Duke Manyweather or any of the other O-line guys out there that are teaching young guys. So how fast does he want to improve? How quickly does he want to have a chance to start for the Chiefs? We're going to find out pretty quick.
Listen, Mitch Schwartz is going to be locked down at home here pretty soon, right? So, hey, you might as well try to get with him. Learn from a guy that you were more athletic than, who was able to put an exemplary career together. I think that would be a nice matchup as well. We'd like to know what you think. What'd you like to see happen? Leave your comments down below here on YouTube.
I just have to add this because it was something I saw right before we started the show. Actually, I guess this is a couple hours ago. Did you see who the Chargers are inviting in for a visit?
I did not.
MVS.
Oh. Welcome back to the AFC West. I hope so. That's good for at least 3 turnovers.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Just thought it was rather interesting, and you mentioned 11 before, so made me think of it.
There you go. Folks, we would like to know what you think. Leave your comments down below here on YouTube or in the Spotify reviews or in the Apple reviews, whichever you prefer. We're going to be with you. Matt Derrick's going to be back with us this week. Rookies have started. They're going to continue. OTAs are coming. We're going to break all that down for you as we continue to look at the draft picks and where they slot in. Look for more on them as we go through the week. And make sure that you remember, we are here 5 days a week plus all offseason. There is no offseason in the NFL. There isn't one for us too. We'll each take a vacation or two every now and then through the summer. You'll have content from us every single day. Do not worry about it. So thanks for spending your time with us tonight, today, and tomorrow. And we will definitely be back with a lot of great content of your newest Kansas City Chiefs. Thanks for listening today.